One of the things I love about Star Citizen the most is just how immersive it can be. And yeah, it's pretty far from being a complete experience right now. Even still, there are few games that have gotten me so enthusiastic that I'd want to buy things like joysticks or my flight chair for a sim pit, or even this thing called the Tobii Eyetracker 5. What it does is it tracks your face and eyes and translates it into the game in a really intuitive way that kind of feels a little bit like a VR headset, except without the headset or anything that you need to wear. And I've been using it for the past 2 years since I got it to play Star Citizen and get some really crazy cinematic shots like the ones you've seen throughout the introduction of the video. And it's really leveled up the immersive experience. Now I can turn my head when I'm in FPS combat to see who's flanking me, or use the headset to lock onto and track targets which are off-bore from where I'm flying, like a real fighter pilot might. And so when Tobii approached me about making a sponsored video recently, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to do a follow-up review to let you guys know how I've enjoyed it for the past 2 years, so you can know whether or not it's going to be something that you want to use yourself. And if by the end it is something that you find that you really want, I'll have a code for you guys at the end where you can get 20% off. It'll be a link and I'll give it to you guys in the description as well as in the video itself. So yeah, let me show you guys why I love this thing, and then I'll talk to you guys a bit about setup and some recommendations for settings. So like I said back when I made the original video 2 years ago, one of the things I pride myself on my channel is making quality content over quantity, even if YouTube doesn't really favor that in the algorithms, which is what drew me to the Tobii Eyetracker in the first place. It was recommended to me from a friend, Craiklin, who at the time was working for CIG in the community team, and he told me about how he could get some crazy shots with it. And so I picked one up for myself and tried it out, and it was awesome. Like, it blew my mind the things that I could do with it that I couldn't do with the base game. You see, the Tobii doesn't just track your head like a Track IR, which uses a sensor unit that you need to attach to like a hat or a set of headphones. It tracks your head and your eyes, your actual eyes. So say when I want to get a shot where I want to track a specific thing on the screen, I can use my eyes to stay focused on it while I move the camera. But that's not the only thing that sets it apart. Like I said, you don't need to wear anything like other options, so you can just sit down and play, and so long as it's attached to the bottom of your screen and plugged in, you just start playing like it's not even there, effortlessly. And with all the immersive benefits of being able to move your head around in the game, which is especially great in summer when I don't want to wear a headset when it's like 90 degrees and 100% humidity in Taiwan. But one of the things that I've discovered after 2 years of using it is that I've not just used it for doing cinematic shots, I've used it throughout the game for multiple situations. First and foremost is flying in space. It's absolutely enhanced my situational awareness when I'm in combat. I'm able to spot multiple targets, lock on off-bore, and shoot missiles at people. It just helps me understand what's going on a lot better and react to it in a much better way. And outside of combat, it's helped me navigate tight spaces like when I'm pulling into hangars or when I'm trying to land on a planet where there's not a lot of good places to land, like these new areas on Microtech which have a lot of trees and only few places to set down. And the great thing about the Tobii is it doesn't just track your head's direction, it also tracks your position so that you can lean over the edge of your ship's window to see what's below you. I mean, it's got a limit, but it does help quite a lot. It's also been a great companion for doing things like salvaging, where I'm scanning for possible wrecks or looking around for all the pieces of a wreck that I've just exploded using the newer stuff that they just added in 3.22. It certainly made me more efficient, but I don't want to also overlook the fact that it's just incredibly immersive to be able to move my head around. And then outside of a ship, it's great for going into FPS combat, turning my head while aiming in one direction to be able to spot if anybody's flanking me, like I said at the beginning of the video. But if you just want to explore and look around, it's also really good for that. Honestly, when I go and travel now with my laptop and play Star Citizen on that, I find myself really missing it. I'd rather not play Star Citizen anymore without the Tobii Eyetracker. And a couple of other things to follow up my last video I did. Many of you asked whether or not it worked with my glasses. As you could see in the video, I've been using glasses for these past 2 years. I've had no problems. It even works with my lights off, because I believe it emits its own IR light, and that's how it's doing the tracking. And one of the other things I said in the first video was that the software was having some issues crashing. That's completely gone away. It's not crashed once for the past 1.5 years. Finally, since it's been around for a while now, there's a huge array of games it now works with, like War Thunder, Flight Simulator, Assassin's Creed, F1 2023, Elite Dangerous, and more. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in seeing whether or not the game you play works with it. But before I tell you guys about what I've learned from tweaking this thing for 2 years in the settings, I'm gonna first review the setup because this is gonna be new to some of you guys, and if you're thinking about getting it, it's gonna be really important to know whether or not it's gonna work with your setup. So to review, the Tobii Eyetracker is this long bar thing that mounts directly beneath your monitor. At least that's where they recommend you put it. It comes with a bracket with Velcro strips on it, which you can then attach to your monitor itself, and then the device itself attaches to that bracket via a built-in magnetic strip. This allows you to, say, take it on the go with you if you've got another mount for your laptop. It then connects to your computer via a USB 2.0 device, and I recommend you attach this to one of your monitor's USBs if you've got one available. But the really important bits of information to know is that it recommends between a 15 to 30-inch monitor for the best results, though I will say that I'm using a 38-inch ultra-wide screen from LG, and it works fine. They also recommend between 45 to 95 centimeters range for use. I sit around the 95 centimeter mark, and I'm totally cool with my sticks away from my desk. And then it requires Windows 10 to work. Next though is the setup. It just has a software where you'll calibrate the device depending on where you've placed it on your screen, and then you'll go through another calibration process for making sure it works with your eyes and your seated position. And while we're in the software, I think it's also worth mentioning that they've got this really cool feature that integrates with YouTube and Twitch and some other streaming platforms that allows you to turn on the ability for your viewers to see where you're looking using this ghosted circle on your screen. It basically tracks where your eyes are, but it's something that only viewers can see, so this isn't gonna stay on your screen and bother you while you're playing. I could see this being useful for instructional streams, but also say for competitive streams where people want to figure out how you're playing the game a little bit more accurately. Personally though, I've not used this feature that much, but I've seen people use it before and it is pretty cool. So now let's talk about settings. Now this is a bit of a dry subject, I know, but it's actually kind of important because everybody is different. And I know that sounds kind of obvious to say, but overlooking this could mean the difference between you hating or loving the Tobii. So the Tobii Eyetracker 5 has a huge amount of adaptability in its settings, and I'm going to be using Star Citizen because that's the game I primarily use it in. You can do things like going between using just your eyes to track and just your head to track, or somewhere in between. By default, it's set to 75% head and 25% eyes, which makes your head do the big movements and your eyes make the fine adjustments, which I think is a great place to start off with. In fact, all the settings are a great starting point, but it's not going to be perfect for everybody, and that's why I think some people may be turned off initially using it. You need to go into these settings to set it up for your personal body movement. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but let me explain it this way. Some people like to, say, sit still when they play a video game, where others maybe move around a lot, and its sensitivity is going to be set to kind of like a standard level, and if you're not a standard person, well, it may feel a little bit strange, so you can adjust, say, the center stabilization to be less sensitive and, say, focused on the center of the screen when you don't want to move your head left to right. There are also dead zone settings, which allow you to filter out smaller movements. Some things that I can absolutely recommend though for everybody is to disable the use of the head tracker while in ADS, as well as using Mobiglass, because that can be really disorienting. Plus, actually the hollow sights in Star Citizen aren't actually accurate. And to make sure that auto calibrate is enabled. Then after that, I recommend you go into the bindings and make sure that you've bound a button to either your mouse or your joysticks or somewhere on your keyboard to toggle the Tobii Eyetracker on and off. One of the things I found after using it after a while is that the 0 point, like where you started using it when you turned it on, can slightly change because, well, your chair isn't bolted to the floor. So if you can turn it on and off, it recalibrates it and recenters it so you get the best, most accurate experience. Plus, it's not always useful to have it on. Say, for example, you're talking to someone in real life, or you're taking a drink, or you're streaming like I do and you want to talk to chat. It can be a little disorienting to see your character's head move to the left while you look at your left screen. I also recommend that you experiment with how you might benefit from the different separated settings from on foot and in your ship. They've actually made 2 different setting sets for this in the settings of Star Citizen. And if you're curious about what I do to get the cinematic shots that I do, I switch the slider all the way to only tracking my eyes. I found that this is the smoothest option and allows me to stay really focused on a specific part of my screen as I move my camera. But be aware that this is not a good setting to use just playing the game, because you'll discover that your eyes are probably not as disciplined as you thought. Just slightly glancing in one other location will cause the whole screen to move, and it can be really disorienting. It took me some time to train myself not to glance around. If you guys are curious about my own personal settings, I'll leave them on the screen here. You'll need to pause though. I'm gonna go over them kind of quickly. That way you can copy what I've done here if you're interested. So some quick last very important things before you guys decide whether or not you want to buy one for yourself. So first of all, one of the things people were really curious about from the original video is whether or not it was intuitive to use, seeing as how you're moving your head and your eyes, but the screen isn't moving. After all, in VR, the screen moves along with you, right? Well, strangely, it's pretty intuitive. It's hard to explain until you use it for yourself, but it absolutely feels natural, at least to me. I think one of the things that helps is how it scales to your head movement, and definitely it helps to have a bigger screen, like a wide screen. The other really important thing to know is that there is a small latency associated with the input of your head's movement. So this is one of the things that have turned people off and why some people have selected other options. But I gotta say that it's really minimal. I hardly ever notice it, and the benefits of it far outweigh the some odd millisecond response time. But that's for me anyway. It's also worth noting that some of the settings that I talked about earlier can make it a little snappier, like turning down the smoothing, but that's something that you're gonna have to play with. The last thing is that it doesn't work with CIG's hilarious face over IP tech, and I say hilarious because it's still kind of derpy, so you'll need another camera in order to track your face's movement. I have tried it does work with both the Tobii and a camera on. So what do you think? Are you interested in the device yourself? Then you can pick one up on their website for €279 or $279. Link in the description will be down below. But for a limited time, starting with the posting of this video, you'll be able to get 20% off if you go to the link in the description. They're also going to be doing a giveaway for Tobii Eyetracker 5, where you'll have to do some things, so if you're interested in maybe having a chance to get a free one for yourself, make sure you check that out as well. But otherwise, if there are any questions that I didn't answer in the video, be sure to let me know down below and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you did pick one up or you already have one, let me know how you guys are enjoying it. Thanks for watching, and if I helped you guys decide, you know what to do. Hope to see you in the next one.